Welcome everybody to the Culture Shock Podcast. It's your boy Pat Bayless, and I'm back with another episode. I'm happy to bring back one of my favorite guys on this planet, to be honest with you. A guy who's helped me with Bible study, led the way in amazing ways. I know a lot of people are fans of him. He's just a great pastor. If you haven't checked him out, make sure you check him out. He's just great at teaching the word. And today we're going to talk about money. So I just want to welcome Pastor Stephen back. How are you, man?
I'm good. I can see that camera right there.
Yeah,
Good.
Man, I'm just so happy that you're here. You know that our conversations are always great, deep, and relatable to the word. Today I really want to talk about money and things of that nature with money, because I think within the Bible, a lot of people just think about stories, things of that nature, but they don't really think about the whole money aspect. And I know in the Bible, if I'm not mistaken, they talk about money heavily. Yeah. Correct?
Yeah. They're I mean, not that I did any like money research, but the last time I seen, it's maybe over like 2,000 references of money. And a lot of little, I guess, indirect comments about like possessions and wealth. So it's mentioned a lot. It's mentioned a lot in the Bible.
So I think a lot of times now, I would say people put money ahead of even people that they love.
Right.
Like money, if you put a chart up, a lot of people will put money first.
Probably.
Above a lot of things, right? I mean, you have a whole slogan, money over everything, this, that, the third.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't have money at the top, but I would you agree with me that you see a lot of people, maybe even in church, putting money above people that they care about or resources that are people?
Yeah. I think, well, one is because the way we have been I don't want to say necessarily trained as far as society-wise, is that we believe the more money we have is the more happiness we probably can acquire. We put values and price tags on everything. And so with the more money you have, I guess it gives you access to create or to purchase more happiness. And so I think that's what it is. It's one of those things where if you have money, you have more access to the ability to be happy. Right. So maybe that's why, people put money ahead of other people, because money gives you that freedom. It gives you opportunities. It gives you options and choices. And so I think maybe that's why we stress money sometimes and we put it over people.
Right.
Yeah.
3 things that I really want to talk about: finances, generosity, and stewardship.
Okay.
All 3 are important. All 3 are mentioned throughout the Bible.
Yeah.
Just tell people out there, how important are finances? Like, everybody will say money's important, but how important are finances? And if to you in the world that you live in now, how has that changed from maybe when you were in your teenage years or early 20s?
You mean just like last week?
For real, I know, right? For real. I wish it was that.
Right. He made it seem like your teenager like 30.
I was a light year away.
I was just 16 yesterday. One of the things I think a lot of people get confused is that God doesn't want us to have money, in a way that there's this, people have this misconception where God doesn't want us to have money, and God does. Like, Jesus does not care about, you not having money. He's not expecting you to be broke. Like, money's an important thing. Money is important because, this is how we get things. We buy food, medicine, education. All those things are important. It's a tool that we use to get things. I think what it is, it's that our heart, where we put our money above everything. And I think that's the issue sometimes, where the Bible really is trying to recondition the way we treat money. Because if you do look at your bank statements, you can see who you are in your money. Your receipts, your bank statements tell you who you are in your money. And I think it's the love of money. They say the money is the root of all evil. It's actually the love of money that's the root of all evil. And when we lose ourselves in our money and we believe that money is everything, that money can purchase everything, I think that's where we go wrong. If I could tell myself how to treat money, I think I would handle it with a little more respect. I think there was a lot of disrespect in it, that I cared more about perception, reputation, how you felt about me, and I used my money to create an image more of us being accepting. The clothes, the name brands, the cars, and not realize that that's only momentarily. That's only for a moment. Like, those styles change. Your opinion on me is gonna change. Whether you like me or not, money ain't gonna be able to do that. I think I would tell myself to be a lot more disciplined with the money that I had, and that not necessarily chase every name brand and every car. But I think, I will honor it a little bit more. It should be respected a lot more than I did. I was very frivolous with how I spent money. Because I care more about like fashion. I was heavily into fashion and cars, but I think that was not even for myself. I think I did it more for perception, reputation, for everybody else around me, right? To say, oh yeah, he got it, right? To floss. Yep. And I think older me would tell younger me, relax. Yeah.
I think a lot of us in general love that feeling of buying something or wearing something, and you hear, oh, you look good. Oh, he got money.
Yeah, he got money.
That car, what kind of car is that? Especially when you're young, if you love women or anything like that, you know what I'm saying? It's Absolutely. Like it attracts, right? It
does.
One thing I want to get into too, because obviously you being in the church, being a pastor, it's the financial aspect within the church.
Yeah.
I think it's a big topic of what people like to use to me as an excuse.
Yeah.
But a big topic nonetheless.
Nonetheless,
right?
It is.
People, I'm not saying churches don't do it, but people like to say, all churches want is money. Yeah. They're just doing it for the money. Yeah. They're just doing it for that. Yeah. What would you say to those people that go to church and as soon as they talk about, offerings, they clinch and they tighten up? What would you tell those people about just church in general and money, finances in the church itself?
Yeah. Well, I think what happens is, this is, of course, one of those stereotypical thoughts of every church, that every pastor is taking the money for himself. And I'm going to tell you that's not true. I'm sure you could do percentages out there. There are not that many churches that are, rich or living above, in the black. There's a lot of churches, when I say the red, meaning, their finances don't add up to meet their budgetary needs.
Yes.
So there's a lot of churches that as soon as the money come in, it goes out. I think a lot of times what people do is that they don't attend church long enough to go to the meetings. So every church has these yearly meetings, budgetary meetings. If you don't go to church enough, you will never hear how your money's being spent. Now, there are pastors, and I believe I'm completely transparent of where the money is going, where I have meetings maybe 3 times for the year to tell you where your money is spent. Like, where's the offering is going, how we're spending it, what bills are being paid, what orphanages we might be helping in Jamaica, how many different things where your money is spent. But it's often that people use one bad, representation of seeing a pastor. And by the way, let me just say, there's a lot of pastors that before they started pastoring, they have other careers. There are writers, songwriters, screenplay. Michael Todd. They're. I think a lot of people have to realize that there are pastors not just with one stream of income. Right. And I think that's what it is, that your pastor from your church is not just pastoring. Maybe they own property. Maybe they're landlords.
Wrote a book.
Wrote a book. Do other things outside of just pastor you, because they understand that stream of income, it's not sufficient enough to provide for their family. Right. So that's another thing that, we have to be careful of, judging pastors too early and saying they're spending the church money and not realizing that there's other streams of income that they use. But I do believe that pastors have to also, you have to be of high integrity. Yeah. Like, I think the Bible lets it It's clear our standard. But pastors also have to be aware of the perception, of how people view the church.
Right.
So if you are a pastor and you're riding in a Bentley while the people in your congregation, is taking the bus, you got to be smart.
Right.
Yeah, that's just not the optics of that. Your people in your church is hopping on the bus and you about to hop in a Bentley. Those optics don't work out. So I think pastors have to be aware of the optics and how people see their money. But I think it's one of those stigmas that will never go away.
Right.
People and their money, they're tied to their money. They want to know where it's going, how much it's spent, where you're doing with it. And I think you have to really get to know the pastor, attend some of the meetings, and I think you'll find out how your money is being spent throughout the community.
This is a little off the topic from
we always go off the topic.
Yeah, of course. But just money, like when you was talking about the representation of pastors.
Yeah.
One thing I don't like is when pastors dress differently or they wear something different or something that they
you too
are
fly.
Not,
you too fly for a pastor? Okay.
And you're not allowed to teach the Bible. You weren't ordained to do it because you got on something that somebody else might want to wear.
Right.
That somebody else didn't, and there's no disrespect to them, but didn't budget their money the right way to maybe be able to wear that. Maybe ran up credit cards. Man, listen, I've done it. Ran up a credit card, you like, I'm going to pay it back when I pay it back. Right. And now your credit's all, you know what I'm saying? Right. Worshiping the wrong thing, but then going to tell a pastor, you shouldn't be teaching because you got braids that do this and you wearing a hat and you got a Yankee hat on and you wearing a jacket.
Yeah.
To me, I personally don't like that. Is there a code within pastoring like that?
A dress code?
Yeah, like almost like a dress code. Like, is there a code within teaching? There isn't, correct?
There's no dress code.
Right.
I think I get it, but I see both ways.
Right.
I do see people looking at their pastor and seeing that he's Gucci out.
Well, that's different. I mean, yeah.
Right. Still, I can see where they may think that there's a better use of money than that. You can get a regular pair of sneakers instead of getting 1,000, and then you can do other things with that money. Right.
Even dressing though, right? Like, come on. Like, even dressing in something, what's the word? Eccentric, right? Like something that's a little loud.
Yeah.
Like, I seen something with Pastor Todd. He was wearing like it was almost like a yellow, as you told the jacket.
I seen it.
And people were all over him. Yeah.
All over him
for wearing
too
that.
much.
They were like, the pastor, he shouldn't be wearing something like that. He looks like this. He's zesty by the way he talks. I mean, I read all the comments. And I'm like, sometimes I'll be writing back, but I'm like,
I don't. I don't spend no time in my comments.
So those things, I don't know. They kind of grind my gears. So I can't imagine, being a pastor.
It comes with, So that's the thing with anyone that once you put yourself in the spotlight, you open yourself up to this kind of criticism, right? And I think, in a way, Todd, like, I have no problem with it. Mm-hmm. I don't think pastors, as long as you're dressed, as long as the pastor's dress code ain't naked. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see my pastor naked on the pulpit.
Right, exactly.
Right? That there are people that depend on how they was raised, where they're from, tradition. I have no problem with it. Like, this person. You don't stop being you when you become a pastor. Like, I'm sure Michael Todd loved fashion before he became a pastor. And now he just happens to be a pastor now. You don't stop being you. You don't become something else. You become more disciplined, right? But I think it only bothers those that can't see beyond what you have on, right? My biggest thing is your heart, right? As long as you have a great heart and you're giving and you're loving, and the one thing about Michael Todd, since we're here and we're talking about him, he's very generous.
Absolutely.
With what he takes in with his church, he's very generous in what he gives to the community, right? So a lot of times we can really allow the outfit to make you forget about all the things that he's doing outside of the church, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of people don't really take the time into investigate all the things that he's doing outside of church. You get caught up in the outfit, but that's what happens in the spotlight. Once you
make it, big in that social realm.
You know, listen, and he has a lot of other streams of income.
Yep.
Right. This is not just, he's an author.
Yep.
I'm sure I think he writes music too.
Mm-hmm.
He produces music.
Point, yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of streams of income in what he's not taking the necessary church money. Now, how you want to use your money, it's your money.
Right.
Now, I agree that there has to be some level of discipline to it. But if he's, I'm sure, more than disciplined with the amount of money he makes, that what he wears to what he makes, you know, is reasonable. Right. You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I want to jump into generosity. Generosity is huge.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we brought up Pastor Todd and how generous he is.
Yeah.
From that standpoint of giving away millions to churches, you know, around America. Generosity. When explaining generosity through biblical or just on an everyday, especially when you're talking to the people in your church, how do you best describe being generous in a world that is me,
greedy,
me? Right.
So the Bible has it normally puts these two up against each other, generosity and greed. It speaks to either or. That's why it can indirectly speak about money and finances at the same time, because generosity it's something that I believe you have to teach it, right? I think for our culture, we want everybody to see our grind. Everybody out there has some level of grind, how I got my money, we teach our kids how to grind, or they can watch our own. But we also got to teach our kids how to be generous, how to give. That's a part of, I think, knowledge we pass down onto our children, how to improve the next person or to pay something forward, how you open doors for somebody else with all that you have taken in. I think what God does with being generosity, he keeps the thoughts and that spirit of greed, because greed is one of those things where you're never content.
Yep.
Right? It's one of those things where no matter what you have, you're always going to want more. Right? So it does create a spirit of almost like envy and jealousy, especially when you're greedy. It makes you're never satisfied, you're never comfortable, you're never content. There's never a moment where you have gratitude, because you believe you don't have enough. So you can just imagine, as that person that's not generous, that's one that's caught up in being greedy, how stressful life can be for them. Right. Because they believe they don't have enough. And I think God instills a level of giving and generosity in us to keep us from the worst parts of ourselves. Right. You know, that this is all that I've made and have, that when is enough?
Yeah.
You know, when is enough? So I think that's what God does. He instills this giving nature to us, that we can give to others to help someone else, and that helps us as well.
I think generosity, you could see it. Like, if you really pay attention, you can see it within people. You have the people that are super, like my mom, she's super generous. Yeah. Like, she'll do something for you and never ask for nothing back. Right. Like, super generous, does it for selfless reasons, right? And then you got the people that are generous. Yeah. And they be like, yeah, I got you. You need what you need. I got you. When you get paid?
Well, that's not generosity.
The first or the second? That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's when you can see it, you're like, no, that's not generosity.
That's transactional.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not generosity. Exactly. It's you don't give with the notion that you're going to get it back. Generosity is not expecting it back. Yeah. Right. I'm giving out of because I know you can't, and I'm not expecting. If you're giving with expecting it back, that's a loan. Yep. Right. Some of us are great at loaning. We just loaning with a happy face.
Or doing things for somebody. And what would you call that? Doing things for somebody, hoping that a purpose comes out of it, and then it becomes a loan.
Yeah. Right. It's transactional. It's almost as it's right. Somebody now is in debt to you.
Yes.
Now they owe you something. Now, even though they did not ask for it back, but they know
they have that over you. That's one of the things. One of my biggest things.
Yeah. So that's what it is. Yeah.
In my life is that I hate feeling like I owe somebody something.
Yeah, me too.
It just sits. Like it just sits there.
Yeah.
And I hate that feeling.
Yeah.
I want to get into purpose. Like obviously we always talk about what's our purpose? What's our purpose? Being purposeful in money.
Yeah.
If you have no purpose in money,
right,
then you have no and you know what I'm saying? Like your money is nothing.
Right.
You know? Do you teach that also within the church? Like having a purpose with your money?
I think I teach more having a purpose because I think money is just a asset to fulfill your purpose, right? So I teach you what are you what do you think God created you to be and to do, right? So I figured that out first. Now money is a tool to help you be that person God created you to be. You know, for instance, this podcast is, you believe what God has created you to do. Yeah. This is your stream. This is your we say in the vein. This is your vein of doing things. Now, money is necessary to help you keep pushing this.
Yes.
The purpose. So that's what I rather teach: purpose, what God called you to do, and then money. Once you know your purpose, you will use your money wisely to facilitate what God has created you to do. Now, if you don't know what your purpose is, you're going to be unpurposeful with your money.
And that's the next thing is what are you going to do with your money when you get it?
Right.
And that's the thing is God doesn't allow people to have something that they're not going to be able to use.
Right.
You're sitting here wondering, I've been a prisoner of it. You sit here, you wonder, why am I not making more? Why am I not doing more? It's because when I get it, it's right out the door.
Right.
You know, what would I do if $5 million just ended up in my account? What would I do with that? I'd be like, all right, Adam, get the Lamborghini ready. You know?
Right.
Like, that's what I'm saying. What are you doing with that?
Right.
And then, again, feeling like when the money's out the door, then that whole saying, what's that saying? Robbing Peter to pay Paul?
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
You're robbing Peter
to pay Paul.
And then you just keep going.
Yeah.
And you keep going, and now you're behind.
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of that, I'm guessing, right? Just within
you know what's, let me say, God has a great sense of humor. People don't realize that God is that sometimes it's not even that he keeps you from it. Sometimes he will give it to you. The story of the prodigal son is, you probably don't know. The story of the prodigal son is that a father who was rich, had a son, and the son asked for his inheritance early. So rich father, his inheritance was going to, what should have been like around 16, 17, however old he was, but he demanded it early before his time. So he took the money that his father gave him, went to a faraway country and just blew it. Blew it on like gambling, blew it on all different things and then he was so broke that he was like sleeping in a pig's pen.
I did hear it, yes.
Okay.
I do know the story.
So he got the money.
Yep.
What God was showing with that was, I'm going to give you the money. So you want this money here, but you're going to realize that you're not mature enough to handle it.
Right.
Because that's another lesson, that I'm going to give you what you want. Now, God works, either way. He keeps it from you because he said you're not ready. And sometimes he give it to you to show you
that you're not ready.
You're not ready. So that's what happens in the prodigal son. He ends up spending all the money that he had. He thought money was the thing, end up sleeping in the pig's pen, and then realize one night the Bible says he comes to himself and say, man, this is not where I expected to be. I had it so much better when I was at my father's house. And then he ended up going back home.
I was going to say he ends up going back home.
Because he realized it's not about money.
Right.
You have to be mature enough to handle the money or the blessing that God gives you. So if we make everything about money, we can miss the maturity part of it. I think it's first understanding your purpose. When you understand your purpose, then money makes you so much wiser.
Yeah.
When you don't know your purpose, when I didn't know my purpose, I'm just blowing it on all different things. My purpose was to impress.
Yes.
My purpose was something else for your reputation. Yeah. My purpose is to gain a shorty, whatever it is. But I think once you understand you and you know your purpose, then you're so much more mature and wiser with your money.
Right.
Yeah.
Another thing I really want to get into is work.
Yeah.
work. Has work taken the place of God
Yeah.
in households?
It's I would say, these are one of your questions. I didn't even, but I just was thinking about it the other day. I think it's just the spirit of productivity. We all want to be productive. And I think in that we push ourselves to the extreme where we burn ourselves out. One of the things that I always talk about with the Bible, and it speaks about the creation, that God created heaven and earth in 6 days, and on the seventh he rested, right? It's one of those things to let us know that even God took the time to rest.
Right.
For us, I think we just push productivity and not embrace that even when you are being still and not doing anything, you are being productive. That God showed you, I'm God, I don't have to rest, but I want to teach you that rest is necessary for you. You ain't God. You are limited in everything you do. I think people are just so addicted to getting ahead that productivity, the idea of success, work, and all of this in competition, in comparison, has pushed us to become these workaholics. And what tends to happen most of the time is that we get so stressed where we can't handle anymore, we get sick, or we end up dying without even enjoying all of the wealth that we have.
Fruits of labor.
Yeah, the fruits of our labor. Yeah, I think we have to calm down with that. Yeah.
I think what I see a lot too is there's no middle. There's no, I want to quote unquote say it the right way, but I mean the way that the Bible. I know in the Bible he gave Adam work, right? Right away he gave Adam work.
He did.
Not Eve, but Adam.
Yeah.
Right, the man. And I mean being a man and understanding what a man is supposed to do and how he's supposed to lead. And I think there's a weird balance now where you have people, and I will just speak for men right now, but you have men that don't want to work, have no ambition, no drive.
Right.
And then you have the other men that are overly working, overly compensating, and there's no middle. Like what you said, there's no rest.
There's no rest.
How in the world nowadays do we change that?
Yeah.
And not only change that, how the heck do you teach that? Because I can't imagine being a pastor coming into a church and having to teach that. Like having to teach and look around, not saying that you know who's lazy and who's not always.
Yeah.
But to know that half of this church, there's men in here that are
Workaholics?
and then there's the other half that are lazy.
Yeah.
That have no ambition and no drive and don't want to work.
Right.
They rather sit at home and try to collect these checks.
So that's an interesting way to put it. Like, half, some with ambition, some without ambition. How do you spark? Tell somebody to tone it down, and while at the same time tell somebody to ratchet it up. Right. I think the Bible, the same message that I'll preach about rest, right, and understanding workload is the same message that would apply to both, because to the person that does nothing, you don't need to rest.
Right.
Rest doesn't feel, rest is only appreciated when you're fully worked.
Right.
If you worked all day and work has been extremely stressful, a 15-minute nap feels like heaven. You know what I mean? You appreciate that a little bit more, right? And so what happens to the people that lacks ambition, your moments of rest or moments when you unplug is not appreciated because you've always been unplugged. You know what I mean? But for a person that has worked, Saturday and Sunday, whenever your time decide, you appreciate it a lot more. So it's almost the same message, right? But it's just looking at it from a different lens. That person, the unplugged, the unambitious person, don't understand the value of rest,
Right.
because you never worked.
Right.
Right. And so it's on me teaching them that rest is there for you, but you can only appreciate it when you start to work. Absolutely. And then for the other person, rest can be appreciated. You work so hard that you need to recoup some of that energy and all that what you lost. The only way you can get it back and re-up is in rest. So it's the same message, but I think the lens or the perspective that I teach from, right, is going to be different.
Seen different.
Yeah, it's going to be seen. And here's another thing why they overworked. They don't trust God enough too.
That's what I want to bring up too.
Oh, okay.
It's trusting God because
Absolutely.
you're working.
I'm going to be my provider because he's not coming through for me
at this moment.
At this moment, his timing, it doesn't work with my timing. And so instead of me waiting on God to do something, I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
So a lot of in that productivity, I'm sure if you dig through their ambition, you'll find somewhere there's a lack of trust.
Yeah.
You know, it's disguised, this productivity, this workaholic, it's disguised in a way as a lack of trust. I don't trust God because maybe his timetable doesn't work. Yeah, his timetable and my timetable are not on the same. And so let me be God and do my own thing, and then God would catch up to me.
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah.
I want to talk about managing money. I know we kind of got into it a little bit, but managing our money.
Yeah.
And that nature. Like a better way to teach young and old how to manage their money. And then I also want to touch on tithing. I really want people to understand what tithing is because I didn't really know what tithing was until I got a little older.
Yeah.
But I first want to talk about managing money. You know, obviously we talked about it earlier with you, the way you would do it differently now, this, that, and the third. But like we said, we have the people that are lazy that aren't getting as much money.
Right.
And then you have the people that are workaholics that have a ton of it. Do you think that within the managing of money, all those things are going to have to play a factor with the generosity and all that? Because I'm sure you've had people come in that want to give, right? And they want to give to the church, but they just don't have it.
Right.
Right. And that probably may hurt their ego.
Right.
And may hurt things of that nature.
Right.
But when you see people like that, do you try to help them in a way of like, how can I help you maybe manage your money? So you could give it to us.
Right.
But like just manage your money so you can get out of the quote unquote rut that you're in.
Okay. So first, let me just say, we say steward of money, how you steward your money. But I think I don't necessarily I teach more the attitude.
Yeah.
God cares more about the attitude than the amount, right? You know, mankind, you and I look at the check amount. We check the check, how much, you write on the amount. God is really checking the heart, right? So it's two different systems. And I think that's what it is. We have to learn. It's two different systems that we operate with and God operate with. God, it's the attitude behind the giving, not the amount of the gift.
Right.
You and I look at the amount. God looks at the attitude. So if you don't have, and I am pastoring a church, and I know the demographics. It's low income. I'm in Brownsville, so I understand the demographics of the congregation that I lead. That many of them do not have, right? So it's not a matter for me. It's not the amount. It's the attitude. Even if you're giving 50 cents. And I teach my children that too. Even if you're giving $1, but you give it with the heart that you give it with, the attitude that you give it with, it's more important. Like if you're giving up there, and I tell the congregation all the time, if you are giving and you are like, oh my God, I'm not sure, don't give it.
Don't give it, right?
Don't give it. Don't give it, because the Bible says God loves a cheerful giver. Meaning, God, listen, I know I don't have it, but I'm trusting you. Here you go. If you are like, oh, I don't know, this might be tight. I got my mortgage due. Don't do it, because if you do give, that moment that you do give it, then it's going to be a constant. Oh my God, why you did that? And it's really, you become like a grumpy giver, right? And even after you put it in your offering, you're going back to your seat, like, oh my God, why you gave that? You get to your home, you go home, you tell your spouse, I gave this. They arguing with you, So God is not looking at the amount. He looks at the attitude. So I teach more being a cheerful giver. Whatever you give, even if it's out of your little, you have $5 and you give 5 cents. Give it with a cheerful heart, because the way God operates is he takes our little and can do much. Yeah. He can multiply our little bit and do much with it. And so I always tell Be willing, be cheerful in giving. I'm not looking at the amount of your
What
giving.
would you say to prideful givers? So like people that
Want
are
to
doing
floss?
that want to. That's what I'm saying. I want to floss and give.
Floss?
Would you say this? No, of course. I'm saying that's right. Yeah, but would you say heart posture wise?
Yeah,
There's no point,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because if you're sitting there just doing it to floss to
Right.
say I gave this, and then also I'm sure it's happened. It has to have happened before in churches where people have given a lot, and they feel like they have the hold on that church.
Yeah.
You know,
what almost as if we do have we have occasions where someone will say well I'm gonna give 5,000, right, and it does spur spark a little
talk,
like ooh, he got money or she got money. To be seen. Well, again, so as a pastor, you want to give $10,000?
do it. Yeah, exactly. God bless you.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's the same message that applies.
Yeah.
That as much as we look at the amount, God is checking the attitude of the heart.
Right.
So whether you have or you don't have, it both, it works out to be the same thing. Now, if you're doing it to be seen, remember God sees you. Right. And so that's another thing you got to deal with. God sees me that this is done not because want to be gracious, not because I want to be kind, because I want to be prideful and I want everybody, all eyes on me. God sees that. Here it is. I'm humble. On the flip side, I'm shameful. I don't have it. I don't make that much money. I don't have a lot. I don't want anybody to hear that when I put something in the offering plate, it jingles.
Yes.
The money don't make a sound. But at the same time, I'm going to give anyway, because I believe that even in my small giving, God sees me. And it's the attitude. God sees that as well. I think both God pays attention to. And again, as much as we look at the amount, it's the attitude. I would say attitude is the bigger driver of generosity in your giving. To add to that now, managing it, to go back to your first original question, we are just meaning stewards. I think that's what we have to remember. All of this is God's.
It's God's. Yeah. Yep.
Or all of it, I'm just giving back to him what he gave me.
Right.
That's the way I look at tithing, because you're there already. I'm merely giving them back. They said 10%, and I don't want to go all deep into the Bible. We could do that for a Bible study one night.
Absolutely.
And where the 10% came from. And then while they changed it now to more being a graceful giver, Old Testament versus New Testament system. But we ain't going to get into that today. But what it is saying that 100% of it is God's, right? So you're talking about the 10% tithe. 100% is God's. God says, you keep 90 of the 100 that I gave you and give me back 10.
Yep.
Now, that's a good deal for anybody. If I say I'm 100% this is yours, all I'm asking you is for the 10% of the 100 that I'm giving you.
Yep.
That's how you view tithes. Yep. That's how anyone could view tithes. All of this is God's. You say, well, not the job. Who gives you the energy to wake up every day for that job?
Yeah.
It's God. So I think being a good steward begins there. Knowing that God owns everything, and it's through his grace that you have acquired everything, or you have the job you have, or have the health that you have. Right. And if you don't have it, I added health for those that might be unemployed. Well, I don't have a job, but you have health.
Yes.
To go find a job.
Right.
Right. So
what about, walking in faith and trying to, sometimes you want to hear from the Holy Spirit, right? You want to hear, and there's been moments in my life where I wanted to, I'm a generous person, but I wanted to be generous at a certain moment. But how do you decipher that? Like, how do you decipher in those moments of, and I'm not talking about giving homeless people money, like just doing something super generous. Like, I remember there was somebody that, I think their card declined or something. This is when I was in Vegas, and it was like a $50 bill. like that they needed, and I just
gamble?
walked over there. No, not to gamble. Nah, I wouldn't do that. It was like in a CVS.
Y'all heard that?
That would have been some crazy stuff. But it was
right.
like at CVS, and they had like, you know, they had a kid with them and everything. So I just walked over there and tapped my card. I didn't really even ask them. I just did it.
Right.
But like, how do you know in that moment, where is it like an ego, not an ego, but like a pride thing where you want to just be helpful and get that gratitude, or is it like a thing where that might have been the Holy Spirit talking to you to say, go help that person?
I think, again, in these moments when we're discerning what it is, honesty is important. You know when it's pride, right? Because I'm a big believer in people being honest with themselves. I'm going to start there. Like, you have to be honest with the voices or the voice that you hear. Now, you know if it's ego too. Because as you're doing it, you say to yourself, yeah, I just want to show them I got it. Depending on the person. Right. Now, most times, I'm going to say most time, let me not say that depending on how they look, what they look like.
That's a fact. You might roll up on something if... Are you gonna help the pretty one or the not so pretty one in your eyes? You probably gonna step up. Yeah,
I'm talking to you now, right? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, we know the moments will speak to us depending on that person, how they look, how we can benefit from them saying, I've helped them out, and I may get thank you so much, here's my number kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I think we all are able in that moment, if we're honest to ourselves, to decipher whether this is of me, right, or of God, if this is ego speaking, Holy Spirit speaking. But I think in that moment, in all moments, we know, we feel it. We feel like, I'm going to do this and help this person out. Right? Absolutely. I'm going to help this person out, and I'm not going to that impulse where we can also sometimes, talk ourselves out of it. You sure you want to do this? Right. You know what I mean? Like, you sure you want to do this? Like, who's that? What they going to take the money and go do? What are they going to do with the money? What are they going to do with the money? You know, they may, like in Brooklyn, there's always somebody that rolls up at your window, right? And if I have it, that's the impulse to give it. Right. But I think it's in that moment we know, if we're honest with ourselves. Yes. Right. I think that's what it is. You don't necessarily need me to tell you. I think we all have that urge and feel. Is this from ego? Or is because you already checked that person out. Right. That one's cute. Yeah. Cute and stuck. Yeah. Savior. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Flesh want right out there. Right out. Me, Savior, got you. Oh, hold on. Oh, it declined? Not mine. Step back. Step back. Let me swipe this. All right. And then we want the applause for the moment. And then there are moments you're not looking for a spotlight. You're just looking to say, God bless you. Have a good day. I got you. Yeah. Yeah. That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah. One of the last things before we get out of here. Developing the keys to the kingdom, right? Like developing and learning what the kingdom is, right? The kingdom of God and money and all of those things. Do you feel like, so, I've been blessed, you've been blessed to be in rooms with people that we sometimes have probably been like, man, like how did we get here in rooms with these people, and be around these people? Same thing with money, but does God kind of put us in these rooms with these people because of the obedience that we are giving? Because I know obedience is key. Obedience is key in anything, especially even with money, to take it to the next level. Yeah. But in the rooms that we're getting in with some of these people, whether it be of high status or just of high knowledge, does God reward us through obedience in that nature? You answer it. Absolutely. I think he puts us in a room because we're people of value and people that can be trusted. Like our motives, our interior motives are pure, right? We're not going into it thinking about how we can benefit ourselves. We're just happy to be in the room. Right. And it's one of those things where we can add value as far as our experience and our honesty, that we're not in it out of jealousy or envy. It's the joy of just being in the room. And if they were to happen to come over and ask you for advice, it's coming from a pure place. I think God does open up these doors for us because it's coming from a pure place. And these people can find that in you. They can see that you're trusted and they know that you're not transactional. You're not trying to get high off their supply. You are there because you, of course, provide a value, but also your honesty, your sincerity, your authenticity. All of these things, God puts us in these rooms because, again, we add value to the room. For instance, David, before he became king, right? So he was just somebody that played music.
Yeah.
And Saul at that time, here go Bible study again. Saul at that time was the king who was going through the bouts with depression, anxiety, different spirits. So the servants thought, you know what would calm you down? Music. Now, this is the time before David was king. He was just a shepherd boy that used to play instruments and that they heard. And so he got an invitation into a room just so that he can help this king with his depression and anxiety with the music that he played. And I believe that's what God does too. He opened the doors to us because he sees that we have value, that we can add value in alleviating the stress of some of these really high profile people because he knows that we operate with a level of character and discipline that maybe all the other people around them don't have. And so, yeah, God does that all the time.
That was perfectly put. And yeah, that's something I was learning. And they actually have a show. I think I told you that. They have a show about David.
Yes.
And how,
On
I forget what it's called.
Prime,
I think it is.
Prime?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't finished it yet. But
Yeah.
It's actually very good and very interesting.
For your audience, watch it. So you can see how sometimes God prepares you for where you're going to be next.
Without you even knowing.
Without you knowing, but you have a smaller role. Like, so I tell the people sometimes, you start out in the mailroom. I know it's the mailroom, but you never know that mailroom experience can make you CEO of the building.
Yep.
Right? And I think it's our humility in these low roles, in these rooms that we get invited into, because our honesty and our sincerity and authenticity, how we treat those and respect that. We're not after it. We're not doing it, to be seen. It may not be big spotlights, but it's God's you being obedient to God opening up these doors that later down the line you're gonna say, yeah, it started small, but look where we are. Look at you guys don't see the camera setup right now.
Yeah.
I remember when we started.
Yep. No, it's true.
And I see
where it's at now.
Because you understand there's a level of humility, sincerity of sometimes it starts small. You're not a big name on the door, but this is what God does.
Absolutely. And for the people out there that want a sports reference, you can look back even right now, a head coach in Miami Heat who's been there for a long time, Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah.
You had a guy, Pat Riley, who's a big stature name.
Yep.
And then you have this guy who's in the video room, Spoelstra, and now he's been a coach. He's won championships. He's been around for a really long time and really probably will be the next up what Pat Riley does. Exactly.
I think one of our last Bible study, I think maybe, and I was telling you, don't despise your valley moments because in your valley moments, it really do cause you to appreciate when you do hit the mountaintop. There's a level of humility that you remember where you were, right? And those experiences speak to how you act on top.
Yes.
Like I understand how to handle the top because I've been down so long. And I think that's what it is with people. They don't take the lessons from these low moments and take them with them. That you can learn a lot when you're just a male video. He was
behind the scenes,
not in the spotlight. What he was doing video guy, and they look at that and say, yeah, he handled that there, he handled that there, he handled that there. I think that's what God does. The more times we become accountable, that God releases more responsibility to us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pastor, I appreciate you for being here again. Everybody that's watching this episode, really, really, really important. Pay attention to your finances, your money, and doing it with the right
Yeah.
reason and having a great heart posture and great motives behind it. So with that being said, it's another episode of Culture Shock Podcast. Thank you,
Yes.
Pastor.